Prime Minister Tony Abbott is facing continuing and substantial unrest within his own side of politics over recent missteps, the latest being this week's decision to knight Prince Philip. Hot on the heels of Rupert Murdoch's tweets criticising the move and calling on the Prime Minister to sack his Chief of Staff, Tony Abbott's most vehement allies in the media have lined up to whack him. Australia's most read Conservative commentator Andrew Bolt weighed in today, calling the knighthood decision very stupid and potentially fatal for Tony Abbott's grip on the top job. The Prime Minister's allies are rallying around him, even though some of them disagree with that captain's call too. A short time ago, the Agriculture Minister, Barnaby Joyce, joined me from Tamworth. Barnaby Joyce, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Lee.
All right, let's start with the obvious, Tony Abbott's leadership. As you've been out and about the country this week, what have voters been saying to you about the Prime Minister and about the decision to knight Prince Philip?
Look, it's obvious that there are a few people who obviously thought it wasn't the best decision. But Lee, they're moving on, and they're moving on so quickly. There are other things that are happening. There are other jobs that need to be done. People want to concentrate on the big issue and not sweat the small stuff. And I believe that that's what we'll be doing as well. I will put my money on it, Lee. I'll put my house on it, that at the next election there will be so many other things to talk about rather than something that happened at the Australia Day Awards a year ago.
Will you put your house and your money on Tony Abbott leading the coalition at the next election?
Yes, and the thing I like about Tony Abbott, and I've said this before, it's sometimes the mistakes that prove the authenticity of the person. And I want the authentic. I want the person who I believe is real, because when they're authentic, you can trust them. We could easily grab someone from Central Casting and they'd have the right looks and say the right things, but when the time came to chop your toes off, that's exactly what they'd do. I'd rather the authentic, I'd rather the real, and I get that with Tony Abbott.
Authenticity, no one's going to say authenticity is not good, but isn't the problem if the electorate doesn't like that authentic person and what they believe in and what they stand for? And it seems that a number of your colleagues are concerned that Tony Abbott is becoming a problem.
Well, I think that ultimately a judgment is made in an election as to what one side will do as opposed to the policies of the other side. And I believe the next election we'll have quite a clear example of our work to try and turn this nation around. That's the issue people are going to be belting around. That pre-nominals and post-nominals and what happened at an Australia Day award ceremony will be lost in the fish and chip wrapper where it belongs.
But Minister, isn't the problem that you say people are focused on those things, but your own side has kicked so many own goals, including this recent Prince Philip thing. In the weeks before that, the reverse flip again on the Medicare thing. It's your own behaviour and your own messaging that's distracting attention from the things that you would like people to focus on.
Well, in the long and the short of it, the position will be about who can run the economy better, who are the people who have the capacity and the drive to build the dams, to build the infrastructure. Yes, and of course, in managing that, you want to make sure that the distractions are kept to a minimum. But it's a robust place, Parliament, and it's full of these wonderful things called human beings, and human beings will do what human beings do. And occasionally, we're not infallible. You'll make a mistake, but you move on and drive for the bigger agenda.
You pointed out that the Prince Philip thing was minor, but when you look at the history of Australian politics, aren't there plenty of examples where something minor actually cements a view in the electorate, and it can be a turning point? And just for argument's sake, the example I can think of is Mark Latham having that handshake with John Howard, where it cemented a view in the electorate about the type of person Mark Latham was. Isn't that the danger here for Tony Abbott?
Well, I don't think, to be honest, Mark Latham lost that election because of a handshake, and I don't think that we'll be talking about this issue. In fact, I'll put money on it that we won't be talking about this issue at the next election. Things move on. People are smart enough to determine, look, Lee, if I've got a dentist with a drill in my mouth, I don't care if their friends think they're a cracker or if their friends don't like them. What I think about is, has that person got the capacity to do the filling and to do the work? That's what I'm going to be concentrating on. And it's just the same with politics. You work on the premise of, do these people have the capacity to run the country? Do they have the capacity to get our finances straight? Will they build the infrastructure? And I can show examples right now. If you want to say, how are we going? Go look at the price of cattle. Go look at the price of sheep. Go look at how we are managing to turn around things and actually make a difference in people's lives.
You can say, go have a look at the increasing size of the budget deficit. Go have a look at the budget measures you haven't been able to get through. Go have a look at the policies that you've had to backflip over.
Well, that's a good point too, Lee. Look at the policies you haven't been able to get through, which goes to show you that we are dealing with a Senate that should be more mindful of our capacity to try and turn the finances of this nation around.
What does it say that Tony Abbott's staunchest defenders in the media, from Andrew Bolt to Janet Albrechtson to Miranda Devine, all say that this is a disaster, and with Mr Bolt in particular saying that it could be fatal to his leadership?
Well, they are paid a very good wage to do precisely what they do, which is to commentate, and good luck to them and God bless them, and that's their job. But we must continue on with our job, and we can't be distracted by wanting to be the biggest hit in a column, but a bad outcome for our nation. What
do you make of the media baron Rupert Murdoch publicly calling on Tony Abbott to sack his Chief of Staff Peter Credlin?
Well, that's the Twitter sphere, and go onto Twitter and look up my hashtag. If you want to find people who don't like you, Twitter's a great place to start.
But it's Rupert Murdoch's Twitter feed.
Yeah, well, I mean, Rupert is a good man, but he's just another commentator on Twitter, and Twitter is full of people. If you want to find out who doesn't like you, Twitter is the best place to start.
Your colleague, the New South Wales Nationals MP, Michael McCormack, says that the Prime Minister needs to get out and visit a country pub for an honest appraisal of what people are talking about and care about, implying that he's out of touch with the electorate. Is that what's needed?
Look, I think Tony Abbott does a very good... I'll tell you what, I'd go to a country pub with Tony Abbott any day of the week, predominantly for a steak. I have no problems getting around having a yarn to people, neither does Tony, and Michael does a great job in his electorate as well. I think that really what we're having here is a fascination in something that is really, when you think about it, a rather minor issue. The one thing, having worked in a pub for years, the conversation today is very rarely the conversation the next week. Things move on very quickly.
Let me briefly ask you just about the Queensland election this weekend. How are you reading the mood towards the Newman government as Queensland heads to the polls?
Well, the LNP had a massive victory last time, and I think there will be a swing. There always is. That's what happens in elections. It'll be a close election. It'll be a tough election, but I think the LNP will win it, and I believe Mr Newman will hold his seat. Isn't
it the fact that it would be a close and tough election absolutely unbelievable, given the majority by which the LNP controls the parliament?
Not really. I think the electorate these days, Lee, it's a different beast. There is real volatility. You get massive swings in one direction, so you get massive swings back. We don't have the hold and forward dynamics of the past, where people basically stuck to a tribe. Now they're out there to shop, and you've got to be on your game or you'll lose that client.
Barnaby Joyce, good to talk to you. Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome, Lee.